Okay, kids, we are in the section. Oh, hey.
Sorry, my thumb.
Oh, you're fine.
Throw my binder again.
So are you doing that on purpose?
I don't know. If I wasn't, if I would have waited until class started to come back and get it. But
Oh, that's true. That's
I
true.
would have interrupted you later.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Auschwitz concentration camp, 1945. Chapter 19. After a few months at Birkenau, we were told Auschwitz needed workers. Since Auschwitz was nearby, a sister camp to Birkenau, they marched us down the road and across the fields to get there. Our capo stopped us at the station, where we waited for new prisoners to join us. You could tell they were new because they stepped off the trains in real clothes, not camp uniforms, with their luggage and children in tow. Leave your luggage, the Nazis told them. Why? We were told to bring it with us, they argued. The Nazis promised them it would all be returned to them in due time, and the new prisoners believed them. The Nazis loved having new prisoners who didn't know what was coming. It amused them. I could only feel sorry for the new arrivals. They had no idea the waking nightmare that lay in wait for them. Have you heard of Auschwitz? Our capo asked the new prisoners. No? Someone's waiting for you inside. Do you know who? Death, of course. Death waits for you. Just look and see. The new prisoners kept their distance from us veteran prisoners as we were herded toward the main gate. They looked at us with wide eyes and pulled their children away from us. Did we look like monsters to them? I glanced around at the other prisoners who had come with me from Birkenau. We were skin and bones, with shaved heads and shuffling gaits, and red skin on our arms where they'd tattooed us. Our eyes were sunk into our heads, and our ears stuck out like donkey ears. We must have smelled wretched, though of course we'd all been long accustomed to our stench. I was 15, maybe 16, and I looked like a 60-year-old man. To these people just off the train, we all must have looked like escaped mental asylum patients with our shaved heads and our wooden shoes and oversized blue and gray striped uniforms. If only they knew that this was what awaited them. If they weren't taken right to the gas chambers and the furnaces. We passed under the front gates of Auschwitz, where the German words Arbig macht frei were written above the gate. I knew enough German to translate it. Work makes you free. A smiling SS guard told us a very different story as we passed. You come in through the front gate, he said, but the only way out is through the chimney. I looked up with the new prisoners to the tops of the brick chimneys, where a thick black smoke poured out into the blue-white sky, the crematorium. Little flecks of gray fluttered down all around us, collecting on puddles of water in the yard. I watched a little girl in a blue dress catch one on her tongue like snow. I didn't have a heart to tell her that it was ashes of the people who had come before us. I recognized the assembly yard before they ever told us what it was. They all looked the same, a big muddy field surrounded by barbed wire fence, with bullet-ridden brick wall, especially for executions. Auschwitz prisoners in charge of crowd control organized us into a single file line. One of them shambled up the line, whispering urgent advice. You're 18, you're in good health, you have a trade. You're 18, you're in good health, and you have a trade. What? Said the man in front of me. He wore black trousers and a black vest over a clean white shirt, and he stood with his wife and their young son. The boy couldn't have been more than 10. What did that man say? Why should I tell him I'm 18? Your boy, I said. Tell them your boy is 18 and has a trade. They recoiled when they saw me, the monster that I was. See if you don't look the same in a year, I thought. What? But that's preposterous. He's 9. He's just a boy, the woman said. I left it. A Nazi soldier was walking by, and I wasn't going to get caught talking. We had been lined up so someone at the table ahead could process us, and slowly I made my way to the front. 3 Nazi officers sat at the table. The 2 officers on the sides wore brown shirts and pants, but the man in the middle wore the black of a senior officer. He looked immaculate, with a shining black cap, polished metals, and neat white gloves like a traffic policeman. No one was so clean in a camp ever, not even the camp commandants. This was a man of importance. I could tell right away. He held a baton in his right hand, and with a flick of it to the left or right, he was separating the line. One direction I knew would be for the camp work detail. The other would be for the furnaces. Good material this time, I heard him say as we got closer. Yes, Air, Dr. Mengel, one of the brown shirts, told him. Next, Mengel told the family in front of me. How old are you? I am 39, my wife is 36, and our son is 9, the man told Mengel. Are you healthy? Mengel asked the man. Yes, only my wife had pneumonia recently, and she's still weak from it. I closed my eyes. The man was telling them too much, and not the right things. Your occupation? Mengel asked. I am a clerk. Not anymore, Mengel told him, and he waved his baton to the right for the man, and to the left, the woman and the little boy. Capos came and pulled them apart. Wait, where are you taking them? The man asked, looking terrified. Papa, the boy cried, and he reached for his father, but an SS officer pulled him and his mother away, while another officer pushed the father to the right. Next, Mengel said to me, how old are you? I stood as tall as I could. 18, I lied. Are you healthy? As an ox, I lied again. It was all I could do not to waver as I stood. What is your occupation? I could hardly tell them student. The man before had said clerk, and he'd been lucky enough that they'd kept him. Bricklayer, I lied again. Ere Dr. Mengel pointed his baton to the right, and I joined the ranks of the other men and women who'd been kept to work. At least I hoped that's the group I had been assigned to. Besides the new prisoners, the older prisoners like me looked pathetically weak and incapable of any real kind of labor. Where are they taking my wife and son? The man who had been ahead of me asked a capo. The capo cuffed him with his club, making the man's lip bleed. They are going to the gas chambers. Now shut up unless you want to join them. And for a moment it looked like the man might say that he would. Save your own life, someone whispered behind him. Just let them go. It's better for them this way. How can I let them go? The man cried. They're my family. I love them. But he stayed where he was, holding the back of his hand to his bleeding lip as he wept. When the selection was finished, one of the brown shirts addressed our group. Ere Dr. Mengel was done for the day. Prisoners, the brown shirt said, you are fortunate. You are strong enough to have been selected for work. Once all of the Jews of Europe are collected into our camps, we will organize a new Jewish state for you, where you will be free. The new prisoners looked at one another hopefully. Some of them, like the man who'd been in front of me in line, no doubt thought that this meant his wife and son were still alive and just taken to a different part of the camp. They didn't know the games that the Nazis played yet, the lies that they told us for sport. You'll be happy to know, too, that your stay here in the camp will cost you nothing. All the valuables you brought with you are at this moment being distributed among the camps, where they'll be used exclusively for the benefit of the Jews. Another lie. At Birkenau, we had seen the stockpiles of riches in Canada, the camp storehouse. We had seen how the Nazis made the warehouse their own personal shopping center before shipping trainloads of gold and silver back to Berlin. Work, the officer urged us. Work will set you free. If you work hard, if you perform your duties faithfully, you may be attached to the Wehrmacht as service personnel. From there, you may even earn positions of authority within the new Jewish state. The new prisoners nodded, buying it hook, line, and sinker. I didn't have the heart to tell any of the new Jews that it was all a pack of lies when the roll call was finished and we were sent to our new barracks. No one did. The new prisoners would learn soon enough, and they would accept the truth or they would die. That night, as I lay in the middle slot of my 3-tiered bunk, I heard voices in the distance singing. I couldn't believe it, and I lifted my head to hear better. It was a lullaby my mother had sung to me when I was a child, but it sounded like it was being sung by a choir. Had I finally lost my mind? Was I going crazy? It's the women, the man next to me in the bunk whispered. They sing when mothers and their children are taken to the gas chambers. I listened to their song, distant and plaintive. How often do they sing? I asked. All day, the man said. All day and every night. Chapter 20. Sometimes, in the morning, prisoners didn't wake up. They were dead or dying. The guards would come in and beat their bodies to make sure they weren't faking it, and while they were gone to roll call or on a work detail, the bodies would disappear, carted off to the furnaces to burn like the rest. One morning, the man in the bunk next to me didn't wake up. I knew what death looked like by now. Death and I had become old acquaintances. We knew each other when we passed on the street. This man was dead, I was sure. What is it? Another prisoner asked me. He was a boy like me, maybe 1 or 2 years older. This man is dead, I told him. The boy poked him to be sure, and then looked around to see if the capos were coming yet. Go through his pockets, he said. What? I was momentarily surprised by his words. See if he still has any bread on him. It sounded awful, but if the man did have food on him, he definitely didn't need it anymore. I put my hands in his pockets of his striped jacket and found a lice-ridden piece of bread from last night's dinner. I brushed off the lice, tore the bread in half, and gave half to the other boy. We scarfed down the bread before the capos came. The boy introduced himself to me as Fred. I told him my name, Yannick, not B-3087. I hadn't spoken my name to another for as long as I could remember. Fred and I shook hands. It was the first intentional contact I'd had with anyone in the camps since Uncle Moshe had died. We were all the time touching other people, lined up at roll call, at work, in line to get food, in bed at night, but I hadn't shaken hands or hugged anyone on purpose in months. It felt good to connect with someone, even though Uncle Moshe's words had come back to me again. You have no name, no personality, no family, no friends, nothing to identify you, nothing to care about, not if you want to survive. Fred and I stood together at roll call, but of course we didn't say a word to each other the whole time. When it was time for work detail, we were assigned together to the gravel pit, where we worked side by side, breaking rocks. And where are you from? Fred asked me while we worked. I hesitated, remembering Uncle Moshe's warnings. But Fred was the first person close to my age I'd met since hiding under the floors at Plazow with Isaac and Thomas. And I loved just talking again, being human. Krakow, I told him. Me too, Fred said. We compared streets and discovered we had grown up not too far from each other. We even went to some of the same parks and stores. Every day I would walk my sister to school down Krakusa Street, he said, remembering, and then he got very quiet. Where is she now? I asked. She and my parents came here with me. I was sent to the right. They were sent to the left. I knew what that meant. We all did. His family was dead. Overhead, we heard the drone of airplanes, and we all looked up. British planes, someone whispered. I didn't know how they could tell, but I hoped that they were right. British planes meant that the Allies were advancing, taking the fight to the Germans. The Allies were the forces aligned against Germany, England, France, America, and the rest. The capos cracked their whips and made us all get back to work, but soon we heard explosions in the distance. The Allies were bombing close by. Sometimes I wish the Allies would drop bombs on us, Fred said quietly, blow this place to bits, and all the Nazis and the capos with it. And me too. We can't give up, I told him. We have to survive. Fred tried to smile, but I could tell that he was thinking about his family. He didn't say anything more the rest of the morning. It was only at lunch that he felt like talking again. He lifted a spoonful of tepid, flavorless broth and poured it back into his bowl. You know what I'm going to do first thing when I get out of the camps? I'm going to buy a big, warm, golden loaf of bread, and then I'm going to slice off a thick piece. I'm going to spread butter all over it and eat it in 3 bites. I laughed. I'll take 5 pastries. Oh, and bagels, 3 of those, with cream cheese, carrot cake with walnuts, chocolate pudding. Just talking about all that delicious food made my stomach rumble, but it was fun to dream. We kept up our running menu all through work in the gravel pit that afternoon and into the evening in the barracks, while we lay next to each other on our shelf. Fresh challah bread, I said, sauerkraut, mushroom soup, stuffed cabbage. Will you two shut up about food? A prisoner yelled at us at last. I can't stand it any longer. Fred and I laughed, but we stopped. It was best that we got as much sleep as we could anyway. We had a hard day's work ahead of us and nothing good to eat. Fred and I became inseparable in the camp. We stood together at roll call. We ate together. We tried to get on the same work details. We slept beside each other at night. It was good to have a friend. But one day I noticed Fred was slower at chopping wood than he had been the day before. And at dinner, he wouldn't eat his bread. What's wrong, Fred? I don't feel good, he told me. And he gave me his bread and climbed up into bed. I saved the bread for him in my pocket. He would want it tomorrow, I was sure. But he didn't want it then. He didn't eat his soup at lunch either. I had to do some of his work at the timber yard to cover for him, too. That night, as we lay on our shelf, I whispered to him that he had to get better. I can't, Yannick. It hurts. What does? My stomach, my head, my throat? Fred was sick. There was no doubt about it. But you couldn't get sick in the camps. Not so sick you couldn't work. This There was a camp clinic, but no one wanted to go there. People didn't come back from the camp clinic. Don't worry, you'll be better tomorrow, I told Fred. I saved you some bread for when you're better. Fred wasn't better the next day. He was worse. He couldn't even get out of bed. Fred, you have to get up. You have to move. The capo will come for you soon. No, Fred moaned. No, Yannick, go. You have to go. What's this? What's going on? An angry voice demanded, and it was our barrack capo. He pushed me aside and poked Fred with his club. Get up. Time for roll call. He can't, I told the capo. He's sick. The capo struck me with his club, sending me to the floor, and I put my hand to my ear and felt blood. Get up, the capo told Fred again, and he hit him with the club, and Fred moaned. I stood up and was about to grab the capo to try to stop him, but another prisoner took me by the arm. Come away, he whispered. Come away, boy. Capo hit Fred again and again. Fred, I yelled. Get to roll call, or you'll get a beating, the capo threatened me. Yannick, Fred moaned. Just go, please. The capo hit him again as the other prisoner pulled me away. He's going to kill him, I pleaded with the man. Yes, and he'll kill you too if you interfere. Is that what you want? I stood in line at the roll call, watching for Fred. He had to get up. He could make it. He wasn't a Mussulman yet. He was just sick. He could get better. Fred arrived at roll call at the very end, but only because he was dragged there by two capos. His face was bloody where they'd beaten him, and he hung limp, not even trying to stand. I fought back the tears that came to my eyes. The capos hauled Fred to the front of the assembly yard, where a gallows was built. It was a simple thing, just two standing poles with a bar between them. From the pole hung a rope with a noose tied at the end. The two capos lifted Fred's neck into the noose and tightened it, leaving a chair under his feet to keep him from hanging. He was so weak he couldn't even stand, and the rope cut into his neck, turning his face blue, and I choked back a sob. This man says he cannot work, a Nazi told us. No, I thought. No, he can. He's a good worker. He's just sick. Work makes you free, the Nazi told us. But if you cannot work, and the Nazi nodded to the capos, and one of them kicked the chair out from under Fred. He lifted his head for a moment, long enough for me to see his horrified face, and then I couldn't watch anymore. That night, I said a Kaddish for Fred, and I ate his bread, and I made him another vow never to forget. Death March, 1945. Chapter 21. One morning after roll call at Auschwitz, we were told we were being moved, all of us. I had never counted, but there had to be 5,000 of us at roll call every day, give or take a few hundred. Workers were needed in the Sachsenhausen concentration camp. The officer of the watch told us, and we were being sent to fill their barracks. I could feel the other prisoners tensing around me. If we could have whispered and talked, we would have. Every day, Allied planes flew overhead, and the bombs they dropped got closer. Sometimes at night, we would even hear the sounds of guns. Big guns, tank guns, anti-aircraft guns. And at the beginning of the war, the Germans had taken the fight to France, to Belgium, to Holland, to Russia. Now the fight was happening in Germany. So when the Nazis said that they were moving us to Sachsenhausen because the camp needed workers, none of us believed them. The Allies were getting closer. They were pushing back. Any day now, we might be liberated. That was the talk in the barracks. The Nazis were probably moving us away from the front lines. There were no trains to take us to Sachsenhausen, the watch officer told us, so we had to walk. That was another good sign for the end of the war, if the Germans had to use all their trains for the war effort. But it was bad for us. I had no idea where Sachsenhausen was or how far we would have to go, but just the thought of walking all day made me feel exhausted. There were others I knew who would never make it a kilometer, but walking we would, some in bare feet and some in odd-sized wooden clogs in our thin uniforms in the middle of winter. The Nazis gave us each a half a loaf of bread and told us it was to last us the whole trip. But how many days would that be? None of us dared ask. I decided right away that I would eat just a bit of my bread at a time to make it last. If I ended up with extra, I would eat the rest at Sachsenhausen. Under the whips and clubs of capos and SS officers, we marched out through the front of Auschwitz. You come in through the front gate, but the only way you leave is through the chimney, the guards had told us when we arrived. Ha, look at me now, I wanted to shout, walking out through the front gate, the way I came in. I had survived the ghetto. I had survived Plaszow, Weisleka, Zabinia, and Birkenau, and now Auschwitz. I was going to survive it all. I was going to be alive when the Allies liberated us. This I swore. But nothing had prepared me for the death march. That is what we began to call it, as our numbers dwindled. We marched for hours upon hours each day, stumbling and staggering along as best as we could. We walked and we walked and we walked, and I began to think there was no Sachsenhausen, that the Nazis merely meant to walk us to death. Those who could not keep up were shot and left by the roadside. The crack of guns behind us was our constant companion, and you knew you had slowed too much if the guns got too loud. Snow fell on us most days, and the dirt road we walked on was frozen when we were lucky, freezing slush when we were not. Those without shoes were the first to fall behind and die. Some tore strips of their canvas jackets and wrapped them around their bare feet. But once the canvas got wet, it was worse. I at least had wooden clogs to keep my feet off the frozen earth, but without socks, my feet were blocks of ice anyway. There was no water. We ate snow when we stopped for the night, caught snowflakes on our tongues as we walked. We slept in the open when there was no barn or shed to be found, which was most nights, sleeping on top of one another like dogs for warmth. The capos and Nazis had fires to keep them warm. At least in the camps, we had shelter to keep the weather off of us at night. Out here, the elements killed more prisoners than our guards did. On the 5th day, or was it the 6th? I'd lost count. I woke up and I was sure I couldn't go on any further. My arms and legs were so cold I couldn't make them move in the morning, and I was sure a Nazi would shoot me. But there were others like me, many others. One man's ear had frozen to the ground in the night. The Nazis gave us time to wake and stir before resuming the march, which was a small mercy. Perhaps they didn't have bullets for us, all of us. As we shambled along later that day, I looked at the men around me. We were skeletons, ghosts, filthy, toothless creatures in oversized, soiled prisoner uniforms. The hair on our heads was growing in thin and scraggly from not too recent shavings. Our fingers were long and bony, like vampires from some Hollywood horror movie. The skin on our faces cracked and drawn back like mummies. The older men had the beginnings of beards on their gray skin, and we all walked like zombies, stumbling more than striding, trying always to stay just one step ahead of the Nazis and their guns. Not long ago, all of these half-dead creatures around me had been people, I realized. Which of them had been doctors, teachers, musicians, businessmen like my father? Which of the boys had been students like me, playing ball in the streets after school, laughing and calling to their friends? It seemed like a lifetime ago. Years. How many years? Like the days I was beginning to lose count. 5 years? 6? Had it been that long? I had been 10 when the war started. That made me 16 years old now. I should almost be done with school and thinking about my career or even university. Mother and father had always wanted me to go to university, but there had been plenty of time to think about that once. Years and years to prepare. Years that were gone now, stolen from me by the Nazis. I closed my eyes, half walking and half sleeping, listening always for the crack of the guns at my heels to know when to pick up my pace. There was danger of passing out, of being shot while I slept, but I couldn't help it. I had only half my bread left, tucked into the waist of my pants. I had stretched it as far as it could go, and still I had no energy left to walk. Something droned in the distance, and our shambling column, so much smaller now than when we had begun our journey, slowed to look up. 3 enormous planes flew by, high in the clouds, raining tiny black specks from their bellies. Bombs. They were Allied planes, dropping bombs somewhere in the distance. We heard the rumble of explosions and saw smoke rise over a hill on the horizon. I wanted to cheer them on, to raise my fists and cry, "Yes, yes, yes, stick it to the Nazis," but I knew I had to keep silent. I wasn't sure I had the strength to shout anyway. The capos cracked their whips and we got moving again. But secretly, I was still urging the Allies on to victory. One of the prisoners began to sing. He was Czech, I think. It sounded like Czech, from what I had heard in the camps. Bevarlo dobre, he sang, his voice weak but insistent. Za než má let bejval svet žakovet. I tensed, sure one of the soldiers would shoot him, but they let him continue. Another prisoner, another Czech further along in line joined him, and then another behind me. And then a Pole beside me began to sing, and I recognized the refrain. Hey, 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 falcons, past the mountains, forest pits, ring, 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 my little bell in the steep. Ring, ring, ring. Sorry, sorry for the girl, for the green Ukraine. Sorry, sorry, your heart is weeping. I'll never see you again. Another Pole took up. Hey, falcons! And with him, and then there was a chorus. When the German Jews began to sing a different song, and the Italian Jews another, I heard a Dutch voice and an English one, and behind me came the most beautiful French voice I had ever heard, though I didn't understand a word of his song. We sang as we walked, all of us, singing 100 different songs, and the Nazis let us sing. Another small mercy. Or perhaps they, too, missed the way the world was before the war. Okay, I'm going to stop there.